Hello, this is Joel Block. I am doing the final project in the interpersonal communication class. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the movie Silver Linings Playbook and how interpersonal communication relates to the characters in this movie. We're going to first start off with one of the communication elements found in the movie, and that is conflict. In my example, Pat Sr. has asked Pat Jr. to attend a Philadelphia Eagles game because he feels that his son has good juju. Pat Jr. already had plans with Tiffany to practice the big move for their dance competition. He's able to attend both engagements, but at the game he gets into a fight defending his older brother. So now he's not able to meet with Tiffany. Once Pat and his brother get back to his parents' house, Tiffany comes over and let's just say she's pretty upset with the whole situation. And let's not forget that Pat Sr. is also upset because he's quite the superstitious man, and sending Pat Jr. to the game was his good luck charm to win a bunch of money. So now the Eagles lost. Pat Sr. has lost a lot of money, and now Tiffany is upset because Pat Jr. bailed on a obligation that he had. So that is the first conflict in the movie Silver Linings Playbook. The next communication element is listening. Right now we're going to dive into the topic being discussed. Pat Jr. invited Tiffany to a diner in their neighborhood where they discussed Tiffany being able to give a letter from Pat to Nikki, Pat's ex-wife. They also talked about why Tiffany got fired from her job. Leading into this conversation, what level of listening was being used? At the diner, Tiffany was demonstrating empathetic listening while listening to Pat explain how his recent troubles did not want to get Nikki back. Excuse me, let me just start over. Tiffany was demonstrating empathetic listening while listening to Pat explain how his recent troubles with his parents did not want to get back to Nikki and be misunderstood. On Pat's side of the table, Pat was listening with an appreciative mindset, being that Tiffany was describing that she was fired because she slept with 11 people at her office due to her depression from her husband Tommy passing away. On to verbal messages. Once Pat and Tiffany finished their dance routine, Pat goes over to talk to Nikki, his ex-wife. Well, wife, soon to be ex-wife. When Tiffany sees him walk over by her, she gets very emotional and leaves the hall crying. When Pat notices that she is no longer around, he runs down to give her a letter professing his love for her. I feel that he does this in the dramatic way he does because he knows she is very upset and he wants to grab her attention. Here's the quote from that epic scene. "The only way you can beat my crazy was by doing something crazy yourself. Thank you. I love you. I knew it the minute I met you. I'm sorry it took so long for me to catch up. I just got stuck." I feel like in this moment, he had to do something dramatic. And he had the letter that he gave her a week before actually giving it to her. But the timing was spot on. She was upset, and he just had to say it. Because I think if you watch this movie, about midway when they start doing the dance recital, there's so many nonverbal messages when they're dancing with each other that they both know it's there. It's clearly there. But it just took something bold to bring it out. And I think how the movie ended was spot on. Here's a GIF of the last scene. How they're looking into each other's eyes. He's not glancing around like he did in the diner. He's just so fixated on her and her reaction. And I think it's vice versa. It does a good job with mannerisms, with listening. I think it's textbook good communication between the two. Moving on. Another communication element, nonverbal messages. I know I touched on it on the last slide, but at 1 hour and 7 minutes, Pat and Tiffany are practicing their dance routine with a song playing with very little dialogue. The nonverbal messages are eye contact, staring at one another, space, they're intimate. I mean, they're close to each other. They are what you would call being in each other's bubble. And both of them are absolutely okay with that. And the touch, holding each other, body movements, their posture. I mean, it's a very intimate scene. And I think at this point, their walls are down and they are becoming very, very comfortable with each other. And I think that's huge, like I alluded to in the previous slide. Here's another GIF. Although they're not looking at each other, but this is all I could find, and this is just them. They're having fun together. They did not start out having fun together. I don't think they really liked each other in the beginning. So I think it's pretty cool how they transformed, and I like the character development of everything. And here we going into another communication element. It's all on the same lines with messages, verbal, nonverbal, but now we're kind of throwing verbal and nonverbal together. So right here, when Pat and Tiffany are going to go check in for the dance competition, they inadvertently hold hands, nonverbal. And when they both realize what they are doing, it sparks a series of verbal messages about them intimately touching each other. With this particular arrangement, this would be an accenting message element, because without the hand holding, the verbal messages it wouldn't have never happened. So here's another GIF, pretty self-explanatory. So talk about comfort, talk about walls down, talk about, I mean, it's pretty clear that they like each other. But obviously it wouldn't be a romantic movie unless it didn't happen until the end. Like on the first slide, GIF. So, pretty cool. And then another communication element is openness. Dialectical openness. When Pat and Tiffany first meet, oh boy. At Veronica and Ronnie's house, the first thing Pat says to her is, "You look nice." "Thank you." "Oh, I'm not flirting with you." "I didn't think you were. I just see that you made an effort and I'm going to be better with my wife. I'm working on that. I want to acknowledge her beauty. I never used to do that. I do that now. So we're going to be better than ever, Nikki." Just practicing. How'd Tommy die? What about your job? Talk about a barrage of questions and comments and statements and just holy, complete awkward, this guy. No filter. Something that I say a lot about people and about myself, and that is textbook no filter for Pat Jr. So shortly after that first awkward moment at Veronica's house, they now are all at the dinner table. Not even 3 minutes into the first course, Tiffany and Pat go back and forth telling the brutal truth about one another. "You have poor social skills. You have a problem. I have a problem. You say more inappropriate things than appropriate things. You scare people. I tell the truth, but you're mean." It's kind of funny. They both have mental issues. So when they first meet each other, there's no filter. They don't hold anything back. It's kind of crazy that they started out here and they end up where they're absolutely head over heels for each other. So on to what I've learned about this course. Well, not to put a label on myself or other guys, but we're not the best communicators. Sometimes I see that. Well, I guess it's now more clear than it ever was with my girlfriend that, yeah, I definitely don't communicate all the time the way I should. And, but now I'm starting to pick up on things about listening, eye contact. I don't know if you can tell from my recording, but I don't think I really speak loudly, but when I get excited about something, I tend to raise my voice, and sometimes people confuse it with me getting angry, but I'm really not. I just want my voice to be heard, and I don't like interrupting. So with people interrupting me, so with that said, it was always a pet peeve of mine, and I've always been respectful of not interrupting people. And I've always been aware of that, but I haven't really been aware of other areas of communication, just by looking at people, because sometimes when people are talking to me, I tend to look away. Maybe I'm intimidated by it, and vice versa when I'm speaking to other people. I don't know, I tend to maybe get a little nervous and start fidgeting, and maybe my posture isn't the greatest, and I guess there's a time and place for everything. And so I really try to pay attention more. I've always had a hard time with paying attention and sitting still, but now that I've taken this class, I'm much more aware of it. And throughout the day when I'm communicating with people, I think to myself, "Oh, you're doing this now. This is positive." You know, you're aware of your surroundings and aware of how you're acting and interacting with other people. So it's really positive. And I think this movie has helped me. I'm really glad I picked this movie, because you start out with two people that are, quite frankly, crazy, and then they become crazy for each other, and that's a little, I guess, confusing, but it's I guess it's just the way to see two people interact with each other from the get-go, and how the character development builds, and how their communication goes from crazy to not so crazy anymore. Like they're on the same page with one another. And I think the plane just evens out for them, and yeah, it's kind of cool to see, and it's really cool to see in my own life how it's built in 5 weeks. So yeah, I think I rambled on a little more than I wanted to, but you know, this recording's kind of goofy. So summarizing the elements from Silver Linings Playbook, kind of what I've alluded to before this is mental illness can lead to people being very open and honest with others with no filter, and how it's important to recognize nonverbal messages, how I'm able to recognize them with other people in my day-to-day life. And I think how important the nonverbal messages were in this movie. Like, for instance, when Tiffany and Pat first met at Tiffany's sister's house, as much as Bradley Cooper's character wanted to fight it, like you could tell this as soon as he put his eyes on her for the first time, like, and he even says it in the final scene, like, from the moment I saw you, you were just beautiful. And you can kind of see that when they actually do meet for the first time, and the whole dance recital and the dance practice. There's so many nonverbal messages. I think that was key in this movie. And I got here at the bottom. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. And I think that's key, obviously, for the last scene when he runs after her and tells her how he feels. But I also noticed with Pat Sr. Pat Sr. is, throughout the movie, he's got the tough guy mentality where he's not going to tell his youngest son that just got out of a mental hospital his true feelings. He kind of beats around the bush, talks about football, and he kind of comments like, I just want to spend time with you. I just want to watch our Eagles together. You're a good luck charm. But I think he's afraid to say what he actually means. But he finally does. And two important scenes in the movie for Robert De Niro's character, I think they're great. When he comes up, Pat Jr. is still sleeping. He sits down right by him and he puts his arm around him. And he tells his youngest son how he feels like he didn't put as much time towards him than his oldest son. And he starts to cry, and I think it's great because the walls are down and he's just pleading with his son, like, please, just don't go back to Nikki. Don't, just get better, because I just want to spend time with you and I love you. And it's a really touching moment. And I actually watched the behind the scenes making of the Silver Linings Playbook, and Robert De Niro did a few takes on that scene with Bradley Cooper, and they were good takes. And when David O. Russell was going to wrap up that scene, Robert spoke up and he said, "Oh, I just want to do it one more time." And David O. Russell said, "Robert De Niro, you can pretty much do whatever you want, you know." And he did it one last take, and that's when he actually cried in the scene. And that was the one that they went with because he had so much emotion, you know, with the body language. And you know, like they say, it's good to make eye contact, but in a conversation like that, when your dad is just spilling the beans about his feelings about raising his youngest son, I don't think direct eye contact is, I don't think it's necessary. So I think it could be awkward. I think it was done right. So maybe eye contact isn't always the greatest. I think it's a rare exception where no eye contact it's okay in a case like that. So, and then at the end, when they do the dance competition, they get their score, and Pat Jr. walks over to Nikki, and Tiffany runs out the door. Pat Jr. comes back, and Pat Sr. grabs him and just looks him dead in the eye and pretty much tells him, like, don't mess this up. Just do not mess this up. He pretty much said, you have a beautiful woman, and I know you love her, and I know she loves you, so go after her. And then Bradley Cooper, Pat Jr., hugs his dad, and it's so sincere because they finally had that moment together where Pat Jr. tells his dad that he loves him, kisses him on the cheek, and it's a touching scene, really. It really is, because they've had their problems. I mean, they got into a fist fight in the attic when he first gets back from the mental hospital. So yeah, this was a really fun project. I don't know if I went 10 minutes, but this is pretty much what I have, and it was a really fun project. It's opened my eyes up to a lot, where going into the workforce and going into just day-to-day living and dealing with people, I think my communication is rising, and it's definitely improving. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So thank you for everything you taught me, and yeah, thanks again.